You're listening to Power BI and More with Business Solutions MVPs Scott Sewell and Joel Lindstrom. This week we are joined by Keith Mescha from Sonoma Partners to talk about some great new tools that they've released that will be a big help to you with your analytics. But first, you're using Power BI, so you have data. And if you have data, you need our sponsor, KingswaySoft. KingswaySoft is a leading provider of Microsoft Dynamics integration software, including Dynamics 365, CRM, AX, NAV, GP, SL, as well as many other applications like Marketo, Dropbox, QuickBooks, and Salesforce. KingswaySoft works easily within the SSIS platform to make your integration processes as quick and easy as possible. Many of their clients have seen 3 to 10 times greater data integration performance after switching to the SSIS integration platform. And we're also sponsored by Alexa CRM. WordPress powers more than 25% of all the websites on the internet, and it's the number one choice for blogs, websites, and portals. And Dynamics 365 has become a de facto standard for sales, marketing, customer service, and industry solutions. Now they can work together thanks to the Dynamics 365 WordPress plugin built with love by the Alexa CRM team. Capture forms, engage your users and customers, all without writing any code. You can download a 30-day trial from alexacrm.com/plugin and instantly create a portal by connecting Dynamics 365 and your WordPress site. Thanks to KingswaySoft and Alexa CRM for sponsoring Power BI and More.
Well, great. Welcome to another episode of Power BI and More. Today we've got a special guest, friend of the pod, Keith Mescha from Sonoma Partners out of Chicago. Keith has produced a tool that's useful for CRM with Power BI, and I thought it was fantastic. And I reached out and said, let's talk. I'd like to get to know you better. And Keith, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me.
I was really impressed with what you do. But tell me a little bit about your background and tell me about how you got what's your experience in the CRM space and what you've been doing with Power BI and CRM these days.
Yeah, sure. So, I've been in the industry for quite a while. CRM-wise, 2011, I started at Sonoma Partners, did a little 4.0 work when I first got here, but that was slowly faded off. Before that, I was always in data. I was a DBA, managed DBAs, did a bunch of ETL, SSIS work for data warehouses for big corporations and stuff. A little dabbling in some VB and C before that, right out of college. So at Sonoma, it's really focused on any project that requires any kind of analytics, data, integration work. I touch at some point. So I got a passion for the data at this point.
Great. So I guess Power BI really fit right in with what you're looking for, what you focus on.
Yeah, I did. I did a lot of SSRS early in my career. Did a lot of the chart guy. I know you guys have had him on. That blog is pretty much like one of my favorite bookmarks. I do a ton of work there. And then as this thing came out, we started exploring it. It was like a no-brainer. I actually had worked with Power View and Power Pivot and all the precursor products in the past. I dabbled in them, but it just wasn't that compelling story. Once you had all the visualizations on with Power BI, it just kind of nailed it home. So I've been looking. I try to jam it in every project I can in some fashion, whether it's Dynamics or not, because I just so easy to learn.
Yeah, here's Power BI is the answer. What's the question again?
Exactly.
So, well, tell me about this. So the other day I was working on this, and I saw a tweet from I guess who was it? Mike? Was it Snyder that?
Possibly,
tweeted?
Yeah.
Yep. Probably. Anyway, one of those guys had tweeted about it, and so I went over and tried it out, and then started a conversation back and forth with you. And so, why don't you describe what it is that you've brought to the table as this accelerator for Power BI?
Yeah, so right now it's a managed solution, so it requires some admin access, and there's some reasons behind us doing it that way. But really, what it is it's a configuration tool. So in this solution, you can configure, and you pick an entity and you pick a view. It could be a personal or a system view, and it'll check all the boxes of the fields. It shows you all the fields on the entity, so it's reading the CRM metadata, and then you just say generate query, and it'll go through and generate the M queries you need to hit the web API and do fetch calls, and then do what we've added recently is the ability to page, so you can do large record sets. So it takes all the data wrangling and complicated clicking through all the 80% effort of getting the data the way you want it. It does all that for you, and you can just connect some lines, build some relationships, and start building charts and dashboards in minutes instead of hours.
Yeah,
essentially is what it is. So that's kind of the idea.
One you mentioned it starts off as a managed solution. I think it's worth clarifying that. Does this make any changes to my CRM?
That's a great question. I think there's a plugin step in there that gets deployed for the metadata. We're actually looking at refactoring it. I know you had commented in our email exchange of possibly looking at porting it over to the XRM Toolbox as a plugin. So I've got an item created for somebody to take a look at that. Something we'll look at in the future. A lot of that is we were learning the looping M, and trying to figure out how to do that effectively. So we've iterated through multiple versions of this to get it to a point where it actually is usable. So we figured let's get it out there. It's usable as it is, and we'll just keep improving on it as we go.
But it doesn't actually change anything in the schema. It doesn't change. It doesn't add any new entities.
No entities. Nope.
Yeah, it doesn't change any entities. No, doesn't change any views. Anything. It's really effectively read only in terms of the schema and the data in CRM.
Correct. Very lightweight. Yep.
Very good. Well, tell me about you mentioned the speed. Tell me a little bit about the difference between the query that, I mean, at the end of the day, you're producing a query that you then take and put into a web query inside of Power BI. So the whole output of your tool is this nice M query that you drop into Power BI, and then that will call out to CRM and request the data.
Right.
Which is great. I'm really happy about that. Tell me about the difference between kind of doing this a little extra couple of steps there versus just going into Power BI and opening up the Power BI to Dynamics 365 connector.
Yeah, so when you do the native connection, I mean, you're going to be presented with all your entities, and it's going to be schema, names, and if you want to get related records, you have to click in and expand. I know I've worked on numerous versions of the API, so I don't remember at what point now, I don't even use it anymore because I use this tool, but if it even shows you the option sets, but at one point it was giving you the integers and you had to go map in the tables and do all this. There's a lot of work and a lot of clicks in Power BI once you get that base connection. Mm-hmm. So what this thing does is, one, it allows you to use views that you already have. So you're already looking at this data in charts or in dashboards. You want to kind of pull some of it together, so you already have a lot of the work done by creating your views in your Dynamics org. We're renaming the option sets, so it's the actual values in there. It's probably not the best modeling. I've done a lot of best practice reading on Power BI, and some of the Power Pivot guys have their books and things and know how to do it most effectively. By no means are we following all those best practices, but we're trying to get something quick and dirty here. We rename all the fields come in as the label name, so what the users will see on the forms, not the schema names, which I know was a problem. So you don't have to rename columns, and it's consistent. There's no spelling errors. There's no typing things differently in different systems.
You've been looking at my dashboard.
Yeah, so you call it one thing in the form, and it's all nice and tested, and then you build your Power BI stuff, and the data developer calls it something slightly different or adds S's at the end of everything, and then it's like, am I looking at the same data or not? So this thing, it does all that for you by reading the CRM metadata. Okay. And then the big thing we added was the ability to do the paging cookies in the fetch, so we can now do, and I've tested up to 200,000 records. It's not the fastest. It's paging through just like if you're making web calls through some code. But once you get it pushed up to the service and scheduled, I don't think it's going to be a big issue. So we have not load tested on giant data sets. However, I'm sure it'll break if you hit that. But
there's a limit to what fetch is useful for.
Yeah, so, and I'm still an advocate of the syncing the data to Azure and doing the traditional data warehouse in large enterprise type projects and that, and right. We still do that and recommend that to our clients. I mean, we're doing that for our own internal reporting. We're not using this tool. We're pushing the data to SQL and doing building a traditional data warehouse and doing analytics on top of that with Power BI. So this is a real niche fit for small, medium demos, quick BAs that want to get some work done. You don't need devs. You don't need data people. BAs can work in views and whatnot. And if you can teach them the Power BI stuff in an hour over a lunch and learn, and they'll be off and running and doing some cool stuff. So
that's great. And another piece of this that I think is a valuable sort of a distinction from this versus the exporting it to using like Kingsway Soft or the data export service to get it out to SQL, is that by going through the API, going through this, whatever you log in as the user, you're seeing the data with your security trimming on it.
Correct.
So you're seeing it with your, so there's a possibility, potentially even a possibility of doing a combination where you say, okay, most of my data is coming out of this warehouse, but some level of it is going to be trimmed using my security level. So I don't know, there's some interesting possibilities there.
Yeah, and that's one of the things in the blog post we published was, if you want to schedule this and have it be all your data, make sure you're using an account that has access to all the records and that kind of stuff. Right. So there's some caveats. We have a blog post on our website you can go look at. There's some details there, and then there's a video on YouTube as well that kind of walks through how to get it up and running. One of our BAs actually did that, so it was, he picked it up pretty quickly. It was a 15-minute conversation. He was off and running. So
nice. Well, so I guess this is all this value that you get. I mean, there's got to be a cost for this, right?
No, right now just go to the website and download it for free. We're not in the product, space. We don't build products that paying customers. It's just stuff to help accelerate and just help the community out there. So there's no cost to it at this point.
Come on, I want you to say, but wait, there's more.
Wait, there's more.
I mean, we love to work on the data projects, and so it's our way to get our foot in the door and let people know we can do this kind of stuff, and we can help you with your challenging projects. And the more I can help grow the data space at Sonoma, the better off. The more exciting for me because it's what I like to do. So
yeah, I appreciate the fact that you're contributing to the community first and foremost, because I think that's what Steiger and Snyder and our teams, even though we're quote unquote competitors to each other, we've often worked as cooperation, where we both appreciate the fact that the other is doing things to help grow the community and support the community. And I think that the rising tide lifts all ships in some ways. And I appreciate the fact that you've reached out and you've shared this with the Power BI plus CRM community, and it's a great tool, and I'm really excited about you delivering this.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of prototyping, right? So I think to me the biggest space here is I can go into a meeting with a potential client, and if they've got CRM up, I can have something built over lunch and show them the power of it that then explodes into larger conversations, right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of the key that I was looking for here. Is I don't want to go back and spend 2 or 3 days building out a model and doing all this intricate work and renaming stuff, and then I want to get right to charts and graphs and cool visuals that Power BI gives you. So this is giving us the ability to do that.
And that prototyping perspective is fantastic for getting people talking about it and getting them on the story. Whether ultimately you use this as your, like I said, in an enterprise environment, you may come back and rebuild the guts underneath it, but from a business user's perspective, teasing out and getting the stories that they need to know about their data, this is you don't have to go through a long, complicated process to get them engaged at the process, because they don't really care about the guts underneath it. They're really interested in what's going to show up and help tell them the story of where their business is right now.
Exactly. I like to, I don't know if you guys watch Christmas Vacation movie, but, data is the gift that keeps on giving, Clark, Once you give them some data, they're going to ask you 15 other questions. So I'll just give them Power BI and let them play around with it.
That's right.
Back in the old SSRS days, I'd have just numerous, change requests. I want to see it this way. I want to see it that way. Now here's all the data in a Power BI thing. Go run with it. When you figure out what you really want, come back with a bunch of questions, and I'll build you what you need. And that's kind of a great fit for what this is here. So yeah, I'm on Twitter at K Mescha, so KMESCHA, and then the tools you can go to sonomapartners.com. Tools/Power BI Query Accelerator is the download page, and there's also a blog post out there. Accelerate your Dynamics 365 to Power BI Analytics path, and there's a link to the download page on that as well. And then I mentioned if you go to our YouTube channel, there's a short little 3-minute video on it if you just want to kind of see how it works.
Awesome. Snapchat, anything like that?
I don't do Snapchat. No, my kids do those things. Yeah, they're begging me for Snapchat. I'm sticking to Twitter and Facebook for now, but which I can't even keep track of at this point. It's too much.
I'm glad you guys set aside your Chicago-New York rivalry for 15 minutes this morning.
That's right.
This has been the Power BI and More podcast with Business Solution MVPs Scott Sewell and Joel Lindstrom. This podcast is a production of Dynamic Podcasts, LLC. Follow Scott Sewell on Twitter at Scott Sewell. Subscribe to the CRM Audio Network of podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, or any place else that fine podcasts are available. You can email us at voice@crm.audio. Thanks again to our sponsors, Kingsway Soft and Alexa CRM.